A local insurance firm in Mumbai decides to use an AI tool to speed up claims processing. Still, within a week, the system starts rejecting legitimate claims because it misinterprets a specific dialect in the documentation. This isn't just a technical glitch, it is a failure of purpose. The purpose of ISO/IEC 42001 is to prevent this exact chaos by providing a framework for an artificial intelligence management system or AIMS. In technical terms, the standard is defined as a set of requirements that an organization must meet to manage the risks and opportunities associated with AI, ensuring ethical and responsible development. To put that in simple words, it is the rule book that keeps a company from accidentally hurting its own customers while trying to be innovative. It defines the why behind the technology. We aren't just using AI to save money, we are using it within a system that ensures we don't break trust. You have probably seen this at the office, where someone pushes a new feature live and it causes a headache for every other department because there was no plan in place. This standard forces that plan to exist. So, now that we have mastered the core purpose of having a system for our AI, you might be wondering how we figure out exactly which parts of a company this system covers. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is defining the scope of the standard. An architect in Delhi does not just start laying bricks for a skyscraper without first defining the property lines on the plot of land. If they build on the neighbor's territory, the whole project faces legal disaster. The scope of ISO 42001 is those property lines. The standard requires an organization to define its scope, the boundaries of what its AI management system will actually control. Formally, this involves identifying the context of the organization, the interested parties, and the specific AI systems involved. In simple terms, it means drawing a circle around the AI tools that actually matter to your business. If a marketing firm uses one AI tool to generate fun social media captions and another AI tool to determine credit risk for clients, they might decide their scope only covers the credit risk tool because that is where the danger lies. You have to decide what is in and what is out. It prevents the scope from becoming so massive that you get lost and so small that you miss the critical risks. Stay with me here. If you don't define the scope, you are essentially trying to guard the entire ocean when you only need to protect the harbor. So now that we have mastered the art of drawing our boundary lines, you might be wondering how those boundaries connect to the broader goals of the business. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is aligning AI governance with organizational objectives. A retail giant in Bangalore launches an AI-powered inventory system, but they forget to align it with their actual business strategy of high-end seasonal sales. The AI starts discounting winter gear during a heat wave because it doesn't know the business goals. It only knows the data. ISO 42001 mandates that the management system must align with the organization's strategic direction. The standard defines this as ensuring that the AI management system supports the mission, vision, and operational goals of the entity. Simply put, your AI should be a tool that helps you reach your destination, not a rogue agent driving you off a cliff. If your goal is customer retention, your AI governance shouldn't allow the bot to be rude to loyal clients. You have probably seen this at the office where the IT team builds a brilliant system that nobody actually needs or uses. When we align our AI, we make sure that every decision the machine makes is pulling the business in the right direction. So now that we have mastered the alignment of technology with business strategy, you might be wondering what happens when different groups like customers, investors, or regulators have conflicting expectations. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is understanding the role of interested parties. A hospital in Chennai implements an AI diagnostic tool. The doctors want speed, the patients want privacy, the software developers want data to train the model, and the regulators want transparency. These groups are our interested parties. The standard requires us to identify these groups and understand their requirements. In technical language, we must determine the relevant needs and expectations of stakeholders to ensure the management system satisfies them. In simple words, it is like being a referee in a game where everyone wants to win for a different reason. You have to find the middle ground where the patient's data is safe but the doctor still gets the diagnosis they need to save a life. If you ignore one group, like the patient's concern for privacy, the whole system eventually collapses because of a lawsuit or a loss of trust. We aren't just pleasing people, we are managing the ecosystem of requirements that keep the technology running smoothly. So now that we've mastered how to balance the demands of different groups, you might be wondering how we build this entire structure to last through changes and failures. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the management, commitment, and leadership. A high-tech company in Pune has a fantastic AI governance policy written in a fancy binder. But when the CEO chooses to bypass security checks to launch a product 2 weeks early, that policy becomes worthless paper. Leadership commitment is the engine of the ISO standard. It is defined as top management demonstrating its dedication by establishing policies and providing the necessary resources for the aims. To break this down, if the boss doesn't care, the employees won't either. As an auditor, I don't just look for a signed document. I look for evidence that leadership actually put their money and time where their mouth is. Did they hire the right people? Did they give the team enough time to perform risk assessments? If the answer is no, then the system is just a suggestion. You have probably seen this where the staff is trying to follow the rules, but they are constantly told to just get it done by management. That is where we see the cracks form. So now that we have mastered why leadership is the heartbeat of our system, you might be wondering how we verify that this entire machine is actually working as intended. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is performance evaluation and internal audits. A massive logistics fleet in Kolkata uses AI to track thousands of trucks. To see if their management system works, they don't just ask the developers if things are fine. They run tests, look at logs, and hold internal audits. Performance evaluation is the checkup phase of the standard. It is defined as the process of monitoring, measuring, analyzing, and evaluating the performance and effectiveness of the AI management system. In simple words, it is the moment of truth where you ask, are we actually doing what we said we would do? We look at the logs to see if there were any near misses. We check if employees are following the training, and we measure the impact of our risk treatments. Think of it like a pilot going through a pre-flight checklist. It doesn't matter how great the plane is. If you don't check the flaps, the engine, and the fuel, you shouldn't take off. As a lead auditor, this is where we prove that the organization isn't just talking about governance, but is actually living it. We have come a long way from defining the purpose to verifying the results. You now have a complete view of how the ISO/IEC 42001 standard creates a loop of trust, responsibility, and constant growth for any organization brave enough to lead the way in AI.